Well, there seems to be a difference between theory and practice. In my last video, I showed you I'm making these little brackets here. You could drop your front suspension down and make your vehicle ride lower. And it sounded good. It worked good. I was really happy with it and all that kind of stuff. Problem is, in practice, I noticed that I got a little bit of a clearance problem here. It tends to chew up the inside of the wheel when you turn her too sharp, and even though I tried grinding that, I mean, it obviously machines off a nice little chunk of aluminum, and that's not really good for the wheels. Plus it makes a hellacious noise. It sounds like your front end's going to come off. So and I guess thirdly is you can't turn that sharp. So I came up with a different modification, and I'm going to show you how it works. It's basically the same thing, only different. What I noticed is, obviously I need to move this out of the way, and fortunately there is enough room here that I can actually shift this in 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to show you the brackets. I'll show you the installation, and anyhow, that part of the program I've managed to fix. The other is a camber problem, and we'll work on that later. On the left is the old bracket, and on the right is the modified bracket. What you can see here, I kind of did this. Oh crap, I'm in the... Hang on. There we go. The only difference between the two brackets is I shifted the lower bolt hole over 3/4 of an inch, and of course I had to modify the bracket to make it anyhow work. But that's all. The original dimensions that I used on the original bracket, which you can see in the previous video, are identical. And yeah, just shift it over 3/4 of an inch and make those brackets instead of the original ones, and it'll work. So I've installed it on the one side here. As you can see, I have the wheel turned till the steering rack hits the stop. So it's just at full lock, and it's a little dark, but I do have a finger's worth of clearance here between the rim and the bracket. So yeah, we're in good shape now, and yeah, that works pretty good. So item number 2 on the list is the camber, and because we've got the arm readjusted now, it brings the top of the tire in, and unfortunately, no matter how much you adjust this guy, I've still got a 2-degree negative camber on the thing. And so I know all the kids are doing it that way nowadays, but as far as straight line running and actually using all your tire, not just the inside edge, it's better if it's straight up and down. So in the last video I showed you how to chop off the factory tang, so we got the eccentric to turn it, but even at full tilt it's still not enough. So what I'm going to do here is, you can see the hole, and it's like 3/8 of an inch more we could go technically, but we have the head of the bolt and all that kind of stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind this over 1/4 of an inch. I've got all kinds of room in the back, so that's okay. But what I've got to do is drop the stupid arm so I don't wipe out the bushing and stuff while I'm doing that. So that's going to be a pain in the butt. I had to drop the steering already again to get at it. So I'm going to do that. Now, on the back side here, we've got another 3/8 of an inch, but I can grind it 1/4 safely, and I've got a 13/16 spark plug socket, a real thin wall that I think we'll be able to get in there. I might grind this just for the hell of it, so I have a little bit of wrench relief to get at it. And also I've got to build up a 1/4 inch on the back side here where I've ground it, so I have a positive shift on that. So that's what I'm going to try to accomplish. I hope that 1/4 inch is just enough to give me that extra 2 degrees. If not, well, there's a more radical procedure that I have in mind, but I may not worry about it. I may just drive with a little caster or camber on it. We'll see what it looks like when I get her done, but that's the project for now, and I get back after I've done all the work and show you what I've done. So on the last video, I showed you how to cut off the factory tab that locked the alignment in there and stuff, but I noticed there's some little mush marks here, which I thought was just some moron with a wrench didn't do it right, but actually that's factory to keep that little piece of tin on. So I'm going to file that off and remove the tin. I'll show you why. So without destroying too much of the hex, you file that little piece of beer can, comes right off. The other interesting trick is this thing's just pressed on, and anything that can be pressed on can generally be pressed off. So that guy comes off. So what I'm going to do now is, it's 16 millimeter, but since this is America, we're using fractional, and I'm going to drill, using that as a pilot, I'm going to drill that hole out to 5/8. So you'll see when you drill it, you're going to break through the side here. So I used a slow speed drill press and cinch her down pretty good. Otherwise you're going to have all kinds of fun doing that. But unfortunately 5/8 is just a little too tight. So I'm going to take a rat tail file or a die grinder, your choice, and open it up so that this guy slides through relatively easily. So that took all of about 15 seconds to hog that out. I also sawed off one of the flats of the flange here. Reason is so it lines up like that. Actually, that fits a little tighter. We'll give her a little, line that up, secure that. I'm going to weld it here, and then I'm going to grind that to at least make it look better, if nothing else. Okay, so a couple zaps there, which are going to secure it forever. And now we have like 1 5/16 over here, whereas factory stock was like 3/4. So that gives us what, 9/16 more adjustment. I mean, we've got a ton of adjustment here, but fortunately it's on an eccentric, so we can just play with it and get her exactly where we want it. We've got all kinds of adjustment now. Simple little modification. Part 2 comes up. So I've ground our slot over to the max here. Made some guidelines here, make sure that the bolt slides nicely in here. Also relieved the casting just a bit, so even at full tilt you still got, well, anyhow, you will have some clearance. That guy's just way, yeah. Anyhow, you still have some clearance here, so you can get a wrench on it and turn it, and all, if you have to do it that far. Let's hope we don't. On the other side, On the other side, we did the same thing, and opened the slot up, but then I cleared this guy so that when we put the nut on and slide it over to the stop, you still have room for that flange to sit flat, because this is a critical part here, and you really got to crank it down so it isn't going to move, and you need a good flat surface to do that. What I've got here is, I don't know if you can see it, anyhow, this is an aluminum burr, and it's a lot more open, and it tends to clog up a lot less. It's also a flat end on the thing, so when you're in here, you can shove it up flush and run it around without gouging the crap out of digging in too far on it, and you get sort of a flat finish like you want on the thing. Well, it's finally done. I'm really happy with the results. When I made this video, I just did it in little bits and pieces here and tried stitching them all together. So you're going to notice a few things, a few inconsistencies, and I'd like to clear them up here before I end this thing. First off, on that slot that I did, obviously I made it come all as far as it would go, not just that 1/4 inch. And as it turned out, I needed every bit of that. Apparently you need a whole bunch of adjustment down below in order to make any kind of appreciable change on the degree of camber on the thing. So where I relieved the casting for the wrench head, I would have done a little bit more on that, because you have to use a box end wrench. You can't get a socket in there, and my wrench is kind of fat, so I had a heck of a time getting it turned all the way. Remember to loosen up the bolt in the back of the arm so that things can slide around, and remember to tighten her back up. It's for the early ones with the small bolt, it's like 130 foot-pounds, and the bigger ones I think are 145 or 140 foot-pounds. Anyhow, crank them down good, crank down the camber bolt good so that doesn't change on you. What I ended up with is, on this side, the passenger side, it's dead nuts up and down, and on the other side I got like a 1/2 degree negative camber, but that's awful close. That's awful close for what I'm doing. The other interesting thing I found is, by bringing the lower control arms in, it really messes up your toe in. I had like over an inch toe out. So once you get your camber set where you want it, make sure and catch that toe and get that readjusted. And after that, I mean, I flew it around the block here a couple of times just to make sure I wasn't giving some bad information here, and wheel's going to fall off or something. God, that thing handles so good. So anyhow, good luck, and I hope that this helps you.